should manage that change in the future. Because what typically happens when the syllabus gets updated is it's a really big, long slog. It takes a long time, it happens infrequently. And with the pace of change that we've got at the moment, that's just not going to wash. So we need to make sure we can change the syllabus more frequently. If something new and important comes along, we need to be able to make those changes to the syllabus without having to wait another 10 years to put those changes in place. And you know, and the change will come. The emerging technologies, part of the AI and emerging technologies practice, and they're already looking at stuff like quantum computing and what some of the applications there might be on the radio side. So that will come. But I think we're really interested in stuff. Yes. Please don't feel constrained. Don't feel that you can only learn what people tell you. It's something interesting. Go and look it up for an expert. And I think something I learned in early 2000, I think it was. I was at dinner and was sitting apart from the consultants, and I was asking about longevity modeling. He said, how come we use stochastic models for asset liability modeling, but we don't tend to use them for longevity trend models? It's way too uncertain to get these models. It's not uncertain. You probably really do want to be using stochastic models there to get a handle on the risk. So I started looking around papers and came across the lead cost model, which was not quite gold standard, but it was really the start of stochastic mortality model. Built a simplified version, changed it to SciAps, then started working on some aspects of what's called Kenn's laid down model, which is used for the pension data and saying the way that it was projecting the parameters, giving some fit with reality. Basically, parameters follow a random walk. That's if you look at the pattern of them, they don't follow a random walk, they follow a trend when the trend changes. And that has some big implications for us. And it's pretty easy then to get from, oh, this is quite interesting, to being one of the leading experts in this area. There's not many people looking at it. And off the back of that, I ended up heading up the longevity reinsurance part of Unit 3, because I'm quite interested in how I did my own research. So, there's plenty of opportunities in stuff like model risk to get to understand what's going on, work with the consultancy, and say, this is something we could be pitching to these organisations using these tools. They don't understand what's going on. Now, in terms of how you make that happen, that's there has been a tendency in the past for the IFLA to say things like, we should have actuaries working in this area. Actuaries have these great skills, we should have actuaries doing this. I think it's a terrible idea. If you go to any organisation and tell them why they should hire actuaries, they don't care. Organisations don't want people with a particular set of letters after their name. Organisations want people who come along and solve problems for them. They don't care what their qualifications are. Now, it just so happens that the skills that actuaries have are the skills a lot of organisations need, but you don't sell it for the letters, you sell it for the skills. So, a few years before I started the actual profession, there was no general insurance exam, because it wasn't that long before then that actuaries weren't really working very much in general insurance. In fact, when I qualified on general insurance and specialist general insurance, partly because it was the shortest paper. When you got your block of photocopied notes from Academ or Hazel Powers it was, your folder for life insurance was about that big. Your folder for general insurance was that big. It's grown over the years, so you now got two folders that big for general insurance, each of two papers. But at the time, it was very light. And this is because it was a very new subject. What happened was, in the UK, in particular, you had a lot of composite insurance companies. Now, after the first life directive, I think, you're no longer allowed to create new composite insurance, which kind of makes sense. General insurance is really risky. Life insurance, we don't really want to put those policyholders at risk from when your general insurance goes back. But anyway, we had composite insurance. Okay. On the life side, had plenty of actuaries working there. And a lot of the actuaries, I looked over the fence at what's happening in the general insurance side and thought, I think we can do a bit better than this. I think we can apply a bit more maths to these problems and get some better results. And they did. And some years later, a group of, I think about 20 of them got together for a general insurance research conference. That's now Gyro, which has about 1,500 people on the waiting list. So the way it started was individual actuaries looking and saying, I think we can do better. It's not just in the UK now. In South Africa, we've got bank insurance, so banks and insurance companies together. And there, the actuaries looked over the fence of the banking side, particularly credit risk, and thought, we can do a bit better than what's going on here. Now we've got a lot of actuaries working in banking in South Africa to the extent they created banking in South Africa, which we also use. And you have quite a different but very relevant model in Australia, where defined benefit pension schemes have been dying a slow death in the UK for like 20 years now. In Australia, they created the superannuation funds, defined contribution funds, and that killed DB pensions overnight. So there's a whole load of actors who need to try and find something else to do. And actually, and just try working data science. So there's a massive group of data science actors now in Australia who moved into that area because they thought, I think we can do something here, and also we need to find something to do. So that's the way that it works. Is individual actors finding opportunities and going and exploiting those opportunities, not something from the top down saying we need actors for these areas. And to an extent, the IFA can help by providing the right tools and providing the kind of medium so that people can learn what those tools are. But I'm really encouraging, don't wait for the syllabus to change. Don't wait for additional resources to go there. If you're interested in this stuff, look it up. There's so much stuff out there on how these models work, on how you can do model validation anyway. There's so much stuff already out there. If you're interested, you can look it up, you can find it, and start looking at trying to move into some of these areas yourself. So I really encourage you to start doing that. And on that, I don't know what the profession can look like in 5 years' time, certainly in 10, 20 years' time. I'm sure it will be thriving. It'll look very different from where it is today. But the reason it'll be thriving is because there'll be individuals, hopefully quite a few in this room, who are interested in stuff, can apply your actuarial skills and knowledge and just your ability to think about these complex models in coherent ways. And you'll be going out and doing this new work, expanding what actuaries do into all these new areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul, for the thought-provoking and inspirational talk. That was super interesting. I'm now switching hats as a Chief Investment Officer of an insurance company. Personally, having just listened to Paul's talk, I couldn't imagine managing an investment portfolio back in 1992 with both yields of S&P data. That would be quite challenging. But what I'm quite keen to share today is to give you a case of what are the key considerations when you construct an investment portfolio for an insurance company. And feel free to ask questions along the way. So what's quite interesting about insurance portfolio compared to your ISA or retail portfolio is that there are multi-dimensional considerations. So what I outline here are the 10 different factors that typically consider when building a well-diversified and well-thought insurance investment portfolio. Firstly, from strategic asset allocation perspective, what to take into account the macro environments such as interest rate, inflations, and spreads, credit spread, all those factors into account, and, assess how much risk you want to take in the market. So what's quite interesting about insurance portfolio is that you basically invest the premium you receive from your insurance contract. And so when you construct the investment portfolio for a life insurance company, you typically have a long duration portfolios, and the liability profile can be quite stable because the key underlying risk is more on the mortality side as well as slow moving risk. When you construct investment portfolio for P&C insurers, some of the liability might be subject to cat events that can be less predictable. They could be short duration as well. So you have to take this consideration into account and decide what type of risk profile you want to take on the asset side to broadly match on the liability side, while also enable you to generate attractive risk-adjusted returns. And in addition to that, many of you might have come across the concept of Solvency II. So that's more of the regulatory capital that you have to hold when you take a risk on your balance sheet. So I come up with a portfolio with 100% Bitcoin, which is hypothetical, let's not make it happen. I would assume that labor force you put at least 100% capital on that side because of the inherent volatile nature of the asset class. So that's why there's no Bitcoin insurance portfolio as far as I'm aware. But also, having said that, what type of asset class tend to be commonly placed in insurance investment portfolio is typically fixed income asset class. Reason for that is because it provides better match towards your liability cash flow, and it provides predictable good yield, and it tends to be capital efficient to some extent as well because there's a different spectrum, there's a broader spectrum of the risk that you can take with a fixed income asset. Most of the insurers tend to have significant of the capital allocated towards investment grade type of fixed income asset that tend to be quite efficient from return on capital perspective. So that's quite important metric to bear in mind. So yes, so that's why because of the four features